We'll begin in just a moment. Hello, everybody. If you don't know me, my name is Mr. Alberti, and I am the Director of Instrumental Music here at Longleaf School of the Arts. And I am excited to welcome everyone to our second Lifelong Artistry Series webinar today featuring Jackson Cooper. Jackson currently is a gifts officer who works in the arts, and he's come today to speak to us about what it means to get a career in the arts. And he'll talk a little bit about him and some tips he has for everyone looking to get their job search and their college search and all that kind of stuff started. So I'm very excited to turn it over to Jackson. And I hope you all learned a lot. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll also have a Q&A at the end. So everyone, please welcome Jackson Cooper.
Great. Thank you, Alex. Hi, everybody. As Alex was saying, I'm Jackson Cooper. I'm coming to you live from Seattle, Washington. Due to COVID, we are all working from home. We have been since Friday, March 13th, which has been quite interesting. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we'll get started. So as Alex was saying, if you have questions at all, because we're actually going to be talking about quite a bit of things today, I wanted to structure this talk less about only my journey and how it relates to the arts, but rather how the arts can relate to your own journey, and especially as you start to think about college and graduate school and either pursuing the arts in some capacity as a career option or even just doing it on the side. I just wanted to kind of offer some advice about things that I wish I was told when I was going to school, and some things that I had to learn along the way, so that hopefully you can feel very confident with these skills and this advice going forward into whatever you do. But most of all, I really want you to take from this the importance of the art during this time and in this world, and the power that you have in using the arts to create real change in the world. And I know that sounds like a very broad kumbaya kind of idea, but it is possible, and we are in such a perfect time in our society to be holding on to the arts right now. So anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is a this is one of my favorite pictures from Pacific Northwest Ballet, where I work. P&B I will get into is, though, later is one of the top 5 ballet companies in the country. I'm very lucky to be working there. And this is a picture from a dance called the Mistake Waltz, which you can find on YouTube. I highly recommend viewing it. And this idea of dancers all making mistakes and yet still having to keep going, I really thought was a good embodiment about a career in the arts where you do have to kind of fake it till you make it sometimes, but you still have to keep going. So I call this in rehearsal because the way that you should think about your career and specifically a career in the arts is that you're going to constantly be in rehearsal. Not every day is a performance, every day is a rehearsal. And as to what you do in the rehearsal room, so to speak, is really important. But also something that you will consistently be learning about through trial and error, through trying new things. So when we talk about a career in the arts, we want to talk about it as a process and not as an arrival. And I really hope that you all take that as, even after this. It's like just remembering that the arts is all about process and not arriving. It's not coming to a finite end. We won't solve world hunger with one symphony or one play or one ballet, but we can start to make the world a better place. And so that we're constantly in dialogue with what is going on in society as well as the art that we are creating. Oh, let me, oops. Okay, get a load of this guy. That's me. That's me laying on a couch at the Ackland Art Museum. A little bit about my background is I actually am a very strange case in the arts. So I'm only 26, but I started in the arts and arts nonprofits when I was 14. I was really interested in putting shows on. I really like the Judy Garland, Mickey Rooney movies where they put on a show in the barn out back. And I wanted to do that, but I didn't know how to do it. I didn't want to be on stage. I did not want to be a stage manager or backstage, but I wanted to help people see really good theater. And so I emailed the CEO of North Carolina Theater at the time and said, I don't know what this is that I want to do, but I want to help out. And she said, oh, what you want to do is connect people with art on a deeper way. She goes, there's this thing called fundraising. And I was like, okay, I'm terrible at asking for money and I'm 14. So I can't really, why should I do fundraising? And she was explaining to me that fundraising is really at the essence, at its core, to the arts, relationship building. And I really like that. I really love talking to people. I love getting to know people. And I really love connecting people with their passions and their arts to make themselves feel very fulfilled. So I started writing thank you notes to high-level donors, very personalized and everything. And then I just kept on staying in internships throughout the end of high school. And then I went to college and I decided that I went to UNC Greensboro and they did not have an arts administration program. So I started my own. I just built my own degree. And no, I'm not a prodigy. I'm a C student, always have been, always will be. But I knew that this was what I wanted to do. Excuse me. And I wasn't going to let a teacher or a professor say that I couldn't do it because it didn't exist. And we're going to get on that later, but that's something that is really important, especially in the arts, is that just because it hasn't been done doesn't mean that it can't be done. And so I learned that. I built my own degree. I did a lot of online classes, classes in the business school and theater, and then graduated early and have held a lot of jobs consistently. And now I'm very lucky to have ended up at Pacific Northwest Ballet. My current role is in fundraising, although I've done programming, I've done I was a house manager for a theater, which meant that I actually ran the theater, cleaned the bathrooms, um, reconciled receipts. So like there's a lot to be said about, even in the arts, you don't have to go down one specific career path. It does help. And eventually you do have to have the wake up call of saying like, well, what do I like and what do I want to keep doing? But that shift constantly, that curiosity and creativity of saying like, that looks interesting, I'm going to try that, is still very key. Because even when you say, okay, I really love fundraising and I want to keep doing it my entire life, that doesn't just mean that I'm going to stay as a major gifts officer the rest of my life. Maybe I want to try being an events manager at a bigger company, or being a director of development for a small company. So giving yourself the opportunities and the possibilities within what you're doing is very important. And that's something that I've been very lucky to have had through supportive mentors and friends and family. But above all, it's something that you have to give yourself. And that's being fearless. That's being, being like, I'm awesome. I'm a boss. I'm going to do this. And I don't care if I fail, I'll learn something. And PNB was kind of that for me too. I had been in fundraising, pretty much my entire life, but this was a big organization. The job was taking care of donors who give $5,000 and above, which is considered a major gift in organizations. And on a whim, I applied. And then 3 weeks later, I moved to Seattle. And I've been here since last October. And this was actually the first ballet I came into. This was our second rep of the season, called Locally Sourced. And it was 3 different Seattle choreographers. And this was probably one of my favorite ballets, and a beautiful ballet to start out with. So I want to talk about some things that you'll hear a lot when it comes to majoring in the arts, being in the arts, or doing the arts. Especially in college, you'll hear it's not what you major in, it's what you do with it. You'll also hear, or implied in some ways, that arts or even sports or even reading or writing are fun. And it takes a lot of luck to have a career in those. And then no matter when, no matter if you haven't played an instrument in a few years, you can always just pick it up and do it again. So the things that actually should be said, first off, when you hear those things, try to disregard those. And I'm going to get into the reason why. And this sort of ties back in with what's happening with COVID right now in our society. First and foremost, a degree helps you with getting a job, no matter the major. Just going to college gets you in the door more than people who don't. So yeah, it does matter that you have a degree, but also, we're learning now that even not having a degree or having a lot of experience and maybe an associate's degree or something is equal. But don't feel like if you go into theater or get a theater major, you have to do theater, or that you can't major in business and still act on the side. Excuse me. I know a lot of people, especially in North Carolina, in the professional music and theater industry, who have day jobs and they just love, to do it. And some of the most talented people did not major in music and such. So, I mean, it's all a personal choice about, how you want to do it, but just know that you can still build a career in the arts with your passion, effort, and your skills. As I said at the beginning of this, a career, and especially a career in the arts, is a process, not an arrival. So again, we're constantly in rehearsal, we're constantly in conversation with other forces, some out of our control, some in our control. And then oftentimes this idea about we have to get a job, you have to get a job in the arts, that is part of a very colonial and capitalist model of production. And what do I mean by that? I mean that there's an expectation in our society that you go to school, you get a job, you do the arts on the side for fun. And sometimes that's fine. It's okay if it's not. Excuse me. If you, by the way, my cough is just, it's very dry in my apartment. It's not COVID, don't worry. So the fact that we feel like we have to check boxes when we go to college, when we put art aside for something more tangible, and we're not seeing the signs that perhaps, you know, we're getting offers, more offers to work in the arts nonprofit, or a lot of gigs that are really, you know, paying the rent and keeping it, keeping us going and fed and the lights on. Often we disregard those as being like, yeah, well, but that's the arts, and there's no way I can sustain this. That's a very old way of thinking, especially now with COVID, with a lot of flexibility happening with our jobs. With the uncertainty of the arts sector right now, it is okay to say like, yeah, maybe the arts aren't sustainable, but it doesn't mean that they're going away. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, if you decide to go down the path of majoring in the arts, that's fine. And you can still get a job in corporate America when you decide to. If you do the opposite and get a business degree, you can still do the arts, and that's okay. Again, this is all a process. You don't have to arrive at a job or arrive at the perfect job even that equals your degree. And that those expectations are just ingrained in our society anyway. I'm going to graduate and get my perfect $60,000 job. No, sometimes that will happen. Sometimes that won't happen. So just make sure that you are flexible and open to listening to yourself, and also literally, like, Google map yourself and then scroll back and realize how big the world is and how much possibility you have, and constantly remind yourself of that. But also, yeah, you should learn how to write a cover letter, a resume, interview questions. Yeah, there are still tangible, hard skills that you need to know, and those are very important. I suggest for those, just reaching out to people who work in the arts. I will share my contact information with Alex to share. I've written plenty of cover letters and prepped friends for interviews and such. But it is important to have those sort of skills handy. So no matter what you're doing, no matter if you're going into the arts or just a career in general. So we're gonna just strike through all those things, and remember that the arts are first about community, they're about you, and they're about practice. We're going to get into the community here in a second, but I do want to say that it is about what you want to do. And whether you don't know it or not, that's okay. But that doesn't mean that you should just simply stop doing it. And it's the same with if you haven't, like, danced or sung or acted in a while. Just because you haven't done that doesn't mean that you can't pick it back up. Again, you should constantly be learning, constantly be challenging yourself. And understanding that you are part of a community. I mean, the arts community is such a strong, tight-knit community that is so supportive that even if you've been playing for 30 years or 30 days, people are still very supportive. And so it's sort of the thing that you learn in high school and in college about finding your tribe, and that you're going to go through a lot of best friends until you find your really best friend. It's the same with the arts. There are a lot of trial and error in the arts, and especially if you get into a career in the arts. But always bring it back to you, what is important to you, bring it back to your community, and then also constantly practice. Constantly, I'm sure Alex is going to appreciate me saying that. Constantly practice. And what does practicing mean? Does it mean memorizing a monologue every 30 days? Maybe, if that's what you want to do, or just going to the theater, or helping a friend with a monologue or something, dancing on your own in your apartment. Practice takes a multitude of faces and titles. So it's like, for me, I studied conducting, and I haven't conducted a production in about a year. So what do? I just go on YouTube and I watch conductors sometimes. And to me, that's practice. And sometimes I just turn on a recording and conduct a recording in front of a mirror. And it's fine. I mean, maybe I'm getting better, maybe I'm not, but at least I'm still keeping it up because I love it. Okay, I'm going to name this because this is also very important and something that's not told to you very often, especially when it comes to the arts. Self-care. I wish I was told all about these things when I was in high school. I really do. Remind yourself of who you are. Values. You have to lead with values. You'll hear a lot, especially if you work in nonprofit, about a nonprofit's mission, its vision, its values. The mission is what is the purpose and direction of the organization. The vision is what do we see the organization becoming? And the values are what is leading that. So make sure that you yourself have a mission, a vision, and values, but more importantly, values. It's not just like, that's right, that's wrong. That's something that I just want to name, we'll name later, but that's called critiquing. And you don't want to critique. You want to name stuff. You want to, it's acknowledging something, acknowledging that something exists and moving towards a solution. Critiquing is just putting something down. And it's the same with you. You have to know who you are. Don't critique yourself. Name when you feel something or when you're disrupted or your values are disrupted. And rather than putting yourself down or putting others down first, you have to remind yourself of who you are and give yourself the openness and space to explore this disruption, which is very important. Remind yourself why you're doing it and also what you're doing it for, not who you're doing it for, what you're doing it for, which is so, so important. Take mental health days, period. That's it. Take mental health days. And then also understand that sometimes you'll have mental days. I apologize for that phrase, but that was just the most creative I was when I was creating this presentation. Not every day is the best day in the world. Not every day you're going to feel yourself, and you're going to be in a work environment or a situation where you are literally feeling like you are out of body. And I know that we have all felt that, seriously. So just instead of critiquing yourself at the end of the day or beating yourself up, just remind yourself that you don't have to be 100% all the time. And that's really hard, especially in the arts. That's very, very hard because there's usually a lot of energy in the arts. And so you do get caught up in that a lot, and you beat yourself up if you're having a bad day and you're not, you screwed up that email or whatever, and you take microaggressions personally. Don't take them personally. So be honest with yourself. Exercise, read, eat healthy, yoga, whatever. Have your thing. Or things. Try different things. I have started running. I'm doing couch to 5K and meditating. I never thought I would do that, but I'm just trying it for a few weeks. So just be open, try stuff. By the way, exercising and eating healthy and getting good sleep, yes, it does really affect your mental health. So make sure that you are prioritizing those. Um, I like to not check social media or work email past 6 p.m. I don't even have work email on my phone. I highly suggest that. If you log off, log off. One of the things that COVID has taught us at PNB, and my bosses have been amazing about, is not working past 5:30 and logging off and taking time to just be with yourself, be with your family, be with your partner, whatever. But any work, that email that comes past 6 p.m., it can wait until the next morning. So I highly recommend investing in work-life balance, and especially now with COVID having disrupted the way that we work, again, in this capitalist, very colonial idea of what a 40-hour work week looks like. Employers are really taking advantage of promoting work-life balance to their employees. So make sure that you are advocating for yourself as you enter this new era of what work is, what school is. And don't be afraid to speak up, because if we're anything right now, it's flexible. Now, this is very important, especially as it comes to the arts, because oftentimes we do the arts in a bubble, in a vacuum. I know that I will just name that oftentimes in COVID, I have even felt like I'm working in a bubble. I mean, maybe that's just because I haven't left my apartment in a few months, but still, we often get so wrapped up in what we are doing, what our institution is doing, that we forget that art is social justice. And now more than ever, we are seeing that take place, and the power that the art has to create real change in society. And it's not just music, theater, public art, murals, things like that. I mean, are just, I'm sorry, I'm just overwhelmed. It's just so beautiful. The things that the way that talking about art during this time has created such a social, more of a social angle than before, I think. So again, remind yourself of who you are, what you're doing it for, and why you're doing it. COVID, George Floyd, Black Lives Matter. Gosh, it's been a year, people. Are you tired? I'm tired. I'm really tired. I'm really tired. What this has done for our institutions, if you remember, I was just talking about disrupting workspace and this new work environment and advocating for yourselves. What we're really seeing right now is a decolonizing of our institutions. So we're now starting to see the curtain has been pulled back on institutions, predominantly, or not predominantly, it has been favoring white privileged people, and marginalizing BIPOC, queer, trans, indigenous people for decades and centuries. And so right now, what's going on in the world, I know we all keep up with the election and politics and such, and we're just like, oh my God, something's going on, something's going on with what is happening in our country. And what that is that we're looking at our institutions, we are acknowledging, we're naming that they have been uh, um, directly impacting and silencing the voices of BIPOC, people of color, queer voices, trans voices, indigenous people for years. And so we're accelerating and mobilizing the process of saying, how can we make these institutions less white and less white male centric? It's a time where we are trying to create more equitable space. I love that word, space, and that art is also doing this as well. And that art institutions and art just period is looking at how art can we become less colonial and Eurocentric. Um, I know we have a dancer in our company, Amanda Morgan, who I highly recommend you doing some research on her. She did a great interview with Dance Magazine. She is the only African American company member of PNB. Now, we fully acknowledge that, and we have also been taking extremely um, uh, meaningful and thoughtful efforts with equity, diversity, and inclusion work. But we did have to acknowledge that, yes, as much work as we are doing on the staff end and on the board end, we still do only have one African American dancer. She said something really interesting that said, in ballet, it's always the white love story. And it's true. And theater as well, movies as well. We see predominantly a European centric model of what a love story looks like. And it's not reflective of the community at large or the community that arts organizations say they are serving. So art right now is also at an impasse of being decolonized and beginning that process. Um, so I encourage you to not only look into the work and read a bunch of articles. There's a bunch of articles out there about decolonizing. I highly recommend reading them. Take a break from the news and actually, read those. And they're just very important because art is now having the power to heal these injustices. Now you're probably like, well, Jackson, what about me in Raleigh, North Carolina, playing, in a symphony orchestra? It's still an opportunity for you to begin those conversations with these institutions, to ask leadership, to ask conductors and people who are running these nonprofits, what are you doing to heal? So really own that. And it's not cancel culture. We're not here to cancel people. That's why I say naming, not critiquing. We're here to just begin those conversations if they haven't already begun, and also to accelerate. I equate it to, you can be on Tumblr all day, or you can go to that party. And right now, we should be going to that party. We should be doing the work. We shouldn't just be reading articles about it. And yes, you should read articles about decolonizing institutions and the ways that you can use art in a social justice way. But then you should go and take action and own it. Own it with your art form. I'm doing that myself. We do a lot of work in my graduate program at Seattle University. It's an MFA in arts leadership. And the entire program is creating arts leaders who can come out with a social justice angle. So I'm doing that work, but I'm also bringing it into my work. And I know that my work, even talking to, rich, predominantly white supporters of the ballet, I still have those conversations with board members and people in my portfolio about equity, diversity, and inclusion. And many of them have done trainings and listened to lectures and joined our EDI committee and such. And so you can do the work, and the work is not separate from what you do. It is so, and last thing, I'm sorry, I know I'm going on, but it is now so ingrained in our society and art period that you should find what you can do, own it, and go out in the world and do it. So some takeaways I wanted you all to have. I know we just talked about career in the arts, a little bit of college, grad school, and then the big meaty topic of social justice and where we are with art right now. And again, by no means is this presentation an arrival, or should you have an idea about what kind of work, social justice work you want to do related to your art. Not at all. But I hope that you at least begin to think about it. And at least this starts the wheels turning in your head. So some key takeaways about being in the arts, especially during this moment. And if you so choose to to either pursue a career or to continue doing it, these are some really important things to know. Listen, always listen. I had a mentor tell me one time, the best thing to do is sit down, shut up, listen up, and show up. Sit down, shut up, listen up, show up. So you don't always have the right answer. You also shouldn't always present a solution, because sometimes conversations don't need a solution. Again, it's all process. Be curious. Be curious about what you want to do. Explore the world of opportunities you have. And you do have a world of opportunities, but you have to be honest with yourself about what opportunities you want to do and which ones you're just like, I just want to do it to do it, but ones that you're genuinely interested in. So be curious about those and also be honest with yourself about those. Empathize. Empathy goes a long way in the arts, especially during this time. The more you can listen to other people's stories, recognize and acknowledge your own space and your lived experience and what you're bringing into the conversation, the more you can empathize. And empathizing is connecting with people. And it might not be the same situation. And sometimes you don't need to bring up a story about yourself. I'm very guilty of that. I always relay things back, but then there are times when I have to check myself and say, like, okay, but I am I come from a very privileged background. I am a white man, so I have a very different experience than a lot of the people I talk to. So maybe maybe this space is not for me to share a story, but just to listen and empathize in my own way. Mobilize. That goes back to the advocacy thing. That means getting out there and doing something. Again, it's one thing to read articles, but then go talk to friends about it. Have a reading group, write a blog post, mobilize what you believe in. Be selfless, not selfish. I don't believe ego should exist in the arts. Hard to say that because a lot of the arts are centered around people's egos. But the more you can be selfless and lead with, again, reminding what you're doing it for and those values, rather than you trying to protect yourself or having your own agenda, The better worker you're going to be, the better artist you're going to be, and you'll be able to empathize better, and you'll be better at at conceptualizing, big issues like social change and putting them into, projects, and just mobilize yourself. Um, and again, this is a process, not an arrival. I'm sure you're already sick of me saying that, but just remember that. So how do you do that? How do you do all of those? Service. I love telling people about service in the arts. When you work for the government, you are a public servant and you are dedicating yourself to service. I believe the arts do that too. Oftentimes, it gets misconstrued that we are providing a service, we are providing entertainment, when in reality, it is a service to the community, because the arts have the ability to change communities and to speak for communities and create real seismic shifts in culture, politics, and civilizations. What do I mean by service? Volunteering, serving on a board, write that article, read the article to friends. I mean, really. And it doesn't have to be every day. It can just be once a month or something. But having that service, and especially volunteering, I really do believe in the power of volunteering. Take tickets for a concert or something like that. Really, really do that. And again, if it's just once a year, service will ground you. Advocacy, naming, not critiquing, for yourself, for others, for your community. Oops, sorry. That is how you start to implement change. Don't let anyone say, this is how we've always done it. That kind of goes back to the start of the presentation when I was saying, I had both the business school and the theater school say, well, that's never been done, so it can't be done. And I said, well, I want to do it. And that's not being stubborn, that's advocating for yourself. Remember that. And that's because I did take my ego out of that. And I said, this is my education, and I want to make the most of my education. So really advocating and speaking up is really how you do that. And sure, it's hard. It's hard to say that to a boss, to a supervisor, to the person, to a board member, to your parents, to someone who signs your checks. It's very difficult, but that is best for you. And also you will learn very quickly whether the work environment or the culture of the space that you are in, whether it's work or school or something, is receptive to that or not. I really hope that COVID allows for that openness, but sometimes, we're all human. So sometimes people will run, you'll run up against some people who will continue to shut you down despite your questions, and keep asking them. Seriously, keep asking them. If you see something that needs to be done or changed, or you need to name something, name it. Seriously, name it. Just bringing things to the forefront as they relate to work, school, yourself, your own mental health. That's very important. And by the way, 9 times out of 10, people are on your side. Your bosses are on your side, your coworkers. So also don't be afraid. Love yourself, love the work, love the world. That's very kumbaya. But really, I mean, and we're in such a difficult time right now where there's so much negativity. And yes, it is hard. It is so hard to find joy some days. But you do have to still say, wow, there's so much opportunity right now. And, you still have to find the love of yourself, your work, and the world. Um, some days you might not. I'm just going to name that. Some days you might not, and that's okay. But remember to always go back to gratitude. Gratitude for yourself, gratitude for the work, that art can exist in this world, that art does exist in this world. Um, Beethoven Symphony Number 9, one of the greatest symphonies ever written. Amazing that it exists. Um, there's so many. I love musicals, and I'm like, I am really glad Rocky Horror Picture Show exists. I'm glad I live in a world where Rocky Horror Picture Show exists. Like, that's great. That's great. Um, and like you said, gratitude, thank you, I appreciate it. Those small things go a really long way. And sometimes we forget to say those things, but it can really, really, it really does mean a lot in the long run. Okay, and yeah, and that's it.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to field some questions from students. I'm gonna ask a couple I have first, and then we're gonna save the last chunk of time for our audience. So one thing about Longleaf is that students are required to get volunteer hours, and one of the main things you touched on was the importance of volunteering. So because you were in the Triangle area for a period of time, do you have any ideas for students to where they might be able to get some experience volunteering and working in the arts in this area?
Yes, I highly recommend. There's a lot of small theater companies that are mostly run by volunteers. And it's not just on stage stuff and backstage stuff. There's also, like I said, tickets, um, working concessions and such. And usually they do a big, usually these theaters do like trainings and such like that. So you feel really empowered. So places like Theater in the Park, Theater Raleigh, um, North Raleigh Arts and Creative Theater. I'm not sure how those have changed due to COVID, but I know that I'm sure there's a lot of um, things like office work that can still be done because a lot of these theaters are still asking for donations and sending out mailers and stuff. So I recommend the theaters in the area as well as places like Carolina Ballet, the opera, the bigger places. Um, but also look at like program organizations like Arts Together, United Arts Council, places that are sort of service organizations and that provide education and grants and things like that. And usually they have a lot. But I recommend going to the theaters first. They are mostly all run on volunteers.
Those are really wonderful examples, and I hope students wrote those down and will be taking advantage of those in the near future. And my last question before I turn over to the audience is what is your best advice for students who want to get some more hands on experience while they're in college? So, what are some things that either you did or you know that other students might have done in college to help prepare themselves for a career in the arts, like outside of the classroom while they're still a student?
I highly recommend. Okay, so I would say this first. First, go to whatever school you want to be involved in, whether it's the School of Music, School of Dance, whatever, and just honestly cold email professors or department heads, schedule meetings, schedule coffee, and just talk. And don't worry, by the way, let me say this, don't worry about word vomiting. Don't worry about word vomiting. It's okay. That's okay. Even if you're not prepared, if you're like, I want to do something in theater, but I don't know what to do. Your professors really are there to help. And they are the best resources. Seriously, they are the best resources because not only could they connect you with things inside the college, they can connect you with things outside of it too. Sometimes you do have to be on them. Like if a professor, like I just remembered a time when I'm very much into writing about the arts. And I remember talking to a professor about that, and she said, "Oh, well, I'll keep you up to date on when there's like call for papers and stuff." And then she never did after like 4 months. And so I had to just email her again. And she said, "Oh, thank you for reminding me." So I would suggest doing that. And then also, honestly, the power of interviewing people. Um, don't be afraid to cold email to say, "I just want to talk to you, Mr. Ted Chapin, President and CEO of the Rogers and Hammerstein organization," which is something I did. I just found his email and I interviewed him over the phone. And he was like, "Well, what can I do for you?" I said, "I just want to talk." And I'm not saying that to like, but I was just like, "I just want to know what you do. That's it." And people love talking about themselves. People love talking about themselves. So don't be afraid to just cold email, DM on Instagram, whatever. Like, "I just want to talk to you." Like, do that and say, "I'm really thinking about getting into this. So I just wanted to hear what your experience has been." So, and people will love to connect about that.
That's awesome advice. So again, I hope my students are taking advantage of that. So I now invite students or anyone in the audience to turn cameras on and feel free to ask any questions you have. We have about 10-ish minutes left, so feel free to engage Jackson while we have him here. And what questions?
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Sophie, and I just have like a quick question. What do you think's like? I don't want to say the best, or just like your favorite part of working in fundraising. Is it just what brings you the most joy in your job?
I love just talking to people so my job in fundraising is a little interesting because typically in fundraising there are a lot of roles that are more administrative focused, or events focused. My job is specifically just taking care of people. I take care of 171 people who give $5,000 and above. And the thing that brings me joy is just talking to them. Not just about the ballet. I actually am more interested in their life sometimes and then I'm like, "All right, I have to ask you about the ballet and I have to, ask for your gift." So I love that. Before COVID, I loved going and meeting people at like coffee shops for lunch, a glass of wine and stuff like that. So I really like the social component of it, because you really do, it becomes less of, as fundraising should be, it should not be a transactional relationship. It should be a personal relationship, not just with you, but with the organization.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One other thing, do you have like a favorite production your ballet is put on? And is there any chance it's online? Because I'm curious about ballet.
Yeah, if you go to pmb.org, you can buy tickets to our virtual season. Actually, our second rep of the season premieres tonight and is available for 5 days. And that's all new work that we have rehearsed and created in the studios with several dancers and then filmed on stage and then edited together. I also highly recommend, I know it's cliche to say, but our production of Nutcracker is also going to stream in December, and it's really good. Tickets are on sale for that too. I would say those are my favorites. I'm just constantly in awe about what we're doing now. And we're doing really cool things because we're doing an all virtual season and actually filming new stuff and putting it out. So we're becoming a film company at this point.
Nice. Thank you.
Excellent. What other questions do we have from our audience?
Hi, I have a question. Did I freeze? Anyway, okay. So my question is, can you like kind of like talk more about like, because you said you like built your own degree when you went to college. Like, how did that work?
Um, so how did that work? Wait. I majored in theater and then minored in business. So I just took one thing. I also did theater because it was the easiest. And I, I love school now. I love graduate school, but undergrad, sometimes you'll be like, I don't want to do work. I don't want to do work. And I was terrible about that. So I was like, the quickest I could finish my degree, the better, which should not be how it is, by the way. Cherish college. College is great. It really is. It really is. I'm stuttering because I'm trying to think how I did it. I just did the degrees, and then like I talked to the registrar about like, can I name it this and stuff like that, and just curated what I wanted to do. Especially when it came to the business classes, I was like, I'm not taking 2 years of accounting. So, so I was like, okay, well, what can I take instead? And I met with my advisor in the business school, and she kind of guided me to entrepreneurship, which was more of the nonprofit stuff. So I just advocated for myself and was just like, I don't want to major in business. I just want to have the baseline knowledge about budgets and finance and management practices and things like that. And then I said, oh, okay, well, maybe I don't have to major. I can minor in it, and I can do theater so I can have time to do more theater and work. So I highly recommend that. And I will name this that colleges have now become very flexible with you curating your own path. So I hope that really, I mean, and I was kind of on the cusp. I mean, I graduated in 2015, and that was when everybody was like we didn't have, like UNCG did not have a strong online class presence. So I had to go and do online classes through like community colleges and stuff. But now my friends who are in undergrad, and I still keep in contact with the UNCG, they now have an arts admin program, which is freaking phenomenal. And I still go back and like guest speak. And what's really incredible is like the program director's like, yeah, we have somebody majoring in music education and arts administration with a minor in French. And I was like, that would have never happened. So colleges have become really flexible with you create your own path. So anyway, that's a long way of answering your question, but yeah, I think now you can curate your path to what you would like it to be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I have a question. So when you were like going to college and stuff, for trying to get a job in the arts, were you ever kind of worried about how like, what if I can't find a job in the arts? Like, did you have like a backup plan for that? Just curious.
Yeah. Yes, but I didn't want to do a backup plan. I guess my backup plan was fundraising. And I think that's the real, like, I didn't mention this in my presentation, but like there's a lot of hard skills, like the business side. You know, you can do marketing and work in the arts and then not work in the arts and go work at marketing for Facebook or something. Fundraising, I could have gotten a job in sales because that's what pretty much fundraising is. So that was always my like backup, but I was like, I don't want to do it. So I really worked. I mean, it was a lot of nose to the grindstone, hustling to make sure that I made a living in the arts. And it was hard because like at my peak in Raleigh, I made about $21,000, which is nothing. But I lived on it. I made it work. I learned how to budget. I learned the value of a crock pot dinner and how long that can last you for a week. Anyway, so my backup plan was like working in sales or working in fundraising for like a hospital or a college or university. And I didn't want to do it, not because I thought it was beneath me. Like I was like, oh, I don't want my friends to know that I'm working at NC State and fundraising. Like it was not that. It was always just like, look, I'm gonna just keep trying, and I'm making money. I'm paying rent. I'm keeping the lights on. My cats are fed. So I'm just gonna keep this up. And the day I run out of money is the day that I start to apply for NC State's development office. So don't get discouraged, but like it is work. I mean, it is like consistent work, but it is important to have the skills of like either marketing or fundraising or business management, project management, like those real crossover skills can really keep you marketable, especially in the arts. So I was very lucky to not have to go to sales because I started consulting with a lot of companies in fundraising. And so, yeah, so the more you just put yourself out there and say, this is what I'm good at, this is what I can do, the better. But also it does take time. So it does, yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Cool. We have time for one last question, and Hope, you can go ahead and ask.
Okay, hi, I'm Hope. I was just wondering, like, okay, like, were there any, okay, so if you, like, your present day self were to go and be a freshman college student, like yourself, so not like telling like what you would tell your younger self, but you today were a freshman college student, what would you do differently, like from ground zero? Not like advice, but like what like regrets or like things that you wish you could do again?
I'm laughing because I just started graduate school and this graduate program during COVID. And I realized, I hit the ground realizing that I did not put in a lot of effort creating good study habits and setting aside time for homework. I was very much I have nothing else to do, so I'm going to do homework. I was like that throughout high school and college, like totally. I was like, I would get home from work and then make dinner and then be like, okay, well, I'm not that tired, so I'm just going to do homework. But in grad school, I definitely was like, no, I need to set aside time because it's so time consuming. And I would say that's something. And then learning that something I learned about myself is that you don't have to read every word in the readings. It's the best advice I could give you guys. You don't have to read every word in the readings that you're assigned. So learn how to skim, learn how to take notes, and learn how to summarize. Those are things that like day one of grad school, I was like, I really regret that I wasn't better at this. So I would say that. Great question. Thank you, Hope.
Excellent. So we're going to wrap up for now. Thank you so much, Jackson, for coming and speaking to our community. And we look forward to chatting more with you in the future. I'll get your contact info and make sure any student that wants it can reach out to you if they have any questions they'd like to answer.
Yes, please reach out, and thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciated the time.
All right. Thank you so much. Everyone have a great night.
How do I do this?